Everyone, thank you so much for joining us, and a special thank you to Lieutenant Governor Boyd Rutherford for taking time out of his busy schedule to chat with us today. We're going to get started in just a few seconds. I'm going to turn it over to Chuck really quickly and let him do a quick intro, and then we will get it going.
Do you want to give a couple ground rules first?
Oh, yes, I do. I'm sorry.
Thanks.
Chuck. Sorry about that. So if you have any questions, those of you, I know a lot of you have joined us before, please feel free to put your questions in the question box on the right-hand side, or you can use the chat box as well, and then we will address them at the end of the presentation.
Thanks, Melissa.
Sure.
Thank you. Lieutenant Governor Rutherford was born in Washington, D.C. and graduated from Archbishop Carroll High School. He completed his undergraduate studies at Howard University and later earned both his law degree and master's degree from University of Southern California. The Lieutenant Governor had a very successful private sector career in both law and business and has earned distinction in public service. He's the former Maryland Secretary of General Services and later served as Assistant Secretary for the USDA. In 2014, Boyd Rutherford was elected the 9th Maryland Lieutenant Governor and re-elected in 2018. The Lieutenant Governor and his wife, Monica, have 3 grown children. Lieutenant Governor, welcome to MCA Maryland.
Well, thank you. Glad to be able to participate in this. Thank you for asking me to join you. I believe you call this Tuesday Talks this morning. It goes without saying that the members of the Mechanical Contractors Association have had a hand in shaping the landmarks and institutions that drive Maryland's economy and growth, including the Inner Harbor, Oriole Park, M&T Bank Stadium, University of Maryland Medical Center, and the casino down at Horseshoe. You know, in 2021, currently, we see the Maryland economy is rebounding from the pandemic, and we're all moving forward and have an eye toward full recovery and prosperity. You know, when the pandemic struck a year ago, back in March of 2020, Governor Hogan, thankfully, and the entire administration took decisive action to stop the spread and save lives, and really set our economy on a path of recovery toward the end of the pandemic and beyond. Now, none of us knew that the pandemic would go as long as it did. I mean, I would say, quite frankly, most of us felt that, by the summer we would be fine and we would be able to get back to normal. But as you see, we're really still in the pandemic. We just now can see light at the end of the tunnel. We did not shut down construction. While we did shut down a good portion of our economy, construction continued, and a lot of other critical industries continued to work during that time, which I think helped our state weather the storm far better than many of the other states in the country, because we did not take such a dramatic approach. Life was upended and redefined, with stay-at-home orders and hospital surge plans, and schools were shut down, mask mandates and the like. The federal government at that time, or in March and April, told us we were on our own in terms of, testing and trying to find the prevalence and spread of COVID in the states. And the governor was able to obtain COVID tests that allowed us to build a robust testing infrastructure to identify COVID hotspots. And throughout the pandemic, we collected data, thanks to our Department of Health, as well as the local health departments that helped to drive decisions in terms of where we would set up testing and expand our capacity and, be able to test, particularly in those areas that were hardest hit by the coronavirus. And we received reports every day where we saw that, folks were being hospitalized and people were dying, and particularly older individuals and people in the nursing homes. Nearly half, I think it was probably a little more than half early on, of the people who were passing away were nursing home residents. And so it was easy to see where we would prioritize those individuals, nursing homes in particular, but our older Marylanders for getting vaccines early, along with frontline healthcare workers. And so now, coming back again to the present in 2021, as summer is beginning, which we can tell by the heat and the cicadas, people are back to barbecues and in-person events and planning and doing summer vacations and weddings coming up, which my daughter, my family and I are preparing for my daughter's wedding. Actually, now I say it's her second marriage. It's not true. She got married last year in our backyard. And so this year we're doing the full wedding thing. Actually on her, they'll be renewing their vows, but it'll be a big wedding celebration. So I'm paying for 2 weddings. The first one was minor, so not that bad. But our positivity rate has come down. We're now below 1.1%, 1.12%, and hospitalizations are falling to the lowest level since last March, or March of 2020. Right now, 71% of Marylanders 18 and above have gotten at least 1 dose of the vaccine. We are, in terms of adult population, I think it's over 68%. No, I think it's closer to 65% of our adult population is fully vaccinated. More than 3 million people in Maryland have been fully vaccinated, and that progress has allowed us to start demobilizing our mass vaccination sites. We're doing that across the state because there's really no shortage at this point in terms of places to get vaccinated. Our mobile and community-based clinics are providing direct access vaccines for people where they live and in communities where they're more comfortable. We started Memorial Day weekend with what we call COVAX Summer Tour, where we're going to breweries with pop-up vaccine sites and food festivals and other places where people may be, that we're trying to hit as many people as possible to make it more convenient for them and possibly fun, if getting a vaccine is fun. There's also more than 7,000 pharmacies that are providing vaccines throughout the state. The other day, my wife and I, and just to clue you in on our age, we got our second shingles shot at the local CVS, and the same CVS, their gentleman who was in there before us was getting his COVID vaccine, and there's no line. You just walk up to the pharmacist, tell them what you're there for, and they say, okay, in between them distributing medication, they come over and give you a shot. So, it's widely available, and we still need as many people as possible to get vaccinated because we are concerned that with these variants coming from different places, Brazil and India, and we're hearing of Vietnam, that these variants will come in, they're making people sick, and we're concerned that the virus can mutate to the point that it may, hop our vaccine, so that, just because you're vaccinated, you may still, get ill from it. We know at this time that you're protected, and even, I think it's 91, 94% effective in terms of preventing you from getting COVID-19. If you are in that low percentage of people who had the vaccine, you're fully vaccinated, and you still get COVID, it has shown that it's 100% effective in you having mild symptoms, not going into the hospital, and potentially dying. So if you know someone who hasn't gotten vaccinated, please urge them to do so. We're providing incentives for residents 18 and older, where they're automatically in a drawing for $40,000 a day, and a drawing on that will be done on July 4th, which could be $400,000, which I think would be, very helpful to anyone. So we're moving forward with the vaccines. We're seeing the economy and activity pick up. Recent jobless, or not jobless, but monthly jobs report from Department of Commerce said that Maryland had added 28,000 jobs so far this year and more than 250 total jobs since April of last year. Our unemployment rate is holding at 6.2%, which is not great, but it is far better than where we were a year ago. We feel that, that those numbers will increase. We see the number of, placements for jobs and requesting employees, and we think that those numbers are going to continue to get better as we move forward. But we can't ignore that, some industries really experienced significant fall off during the pandemic. We all know the hospitality industry, hotels, conventions, and all the ancillary businesses, the restaurants, all, were substantially affected by the pandemic, and it's going to take some time. I understand even the specialty trade contractors, over a year ago had some 108,000 Maryland workers, and now it stands at around 103,000. We're seeing some of that come back, but there's still obstacles to overcome, and we want to make sure that we do in the state all that we can to reduce these barriers. And we know that supply chain issues and costs have gone up through the roof on a number of commodities and materials, and there's uncertainty with regard to the increase in remote work. And it's going to, I think it's going to shake out, particularly as it relates to construction on the commercial side, because we're starting to see, and it may be still anecdotal at this point, that while many of us, including in government, we're thinking, we really are going to see a lot more remote work, going forward, because we saw that it worked. A number of companies and organizations, and I think even the individual workers are really pushing to go back into the office. And so I think there'll be some of that, there'll be some shakeout, there'll be some, split in terms of probably more people doing remote work than it was pre-pandemic. But at the same time, I think there's going to be a need for office space, and some businesses are going to be bringing, a large percentage of their people back. And so they're still going to need, and they may need it to be renovated and redesigned, more open space, more as what they call with those who are kind of hybrid, open space or hoteling. I was looking for the word that they typically use. So, this is just a snapshot of, where we've been and, where we are right now. We're continuing to be, dedicated to making sure that our business community rebounds, that economic activity continue. We were very pleased to be able to get through a bipartisan relief act, emergency legislation that was signed by the governor in February that provided, tax relief as well as, stimulus to struggling families, small businesses, and those who had lost their jobs. We're trying to make sure that we, are cultivating that next generation of skilled professionals who can keep Maryland open for business, including our registered and youth apprenticeship programs that are currently providing on-the-job training, as well as classroom time and full-time careers for 11,000 individuals, and the additional 27 new apprenticeship programs that were approved even during the pandemic. Our EARN program, which is nationally recognized workforce initiative, has helped develop a skilled workforce and prepare Marylanders for meaningful careers. And there have been more than $6.5 million in state funding to support strategic industry partnerships that have trained some 2,300 Marylanders in demand careers in cybersecurity, healthcare, as well as the skilled trades. And we're seeing that, many of our companies are doing well. It was just reported that in the Fortune 500, that Maryland has 6 companies that are headquartered here. We had a couple of companies that, entered the Fortune 500 this past year, T. Rowe Price, Sinclair, and Sinclair Broadcasting, and McCormick Spice. I guess do they go by? Yeah, I guess it's McCormick and Company. I'm still used to calling them McCormick Spice. And I know that, I understand the members have supported the work in many of these businesses. So I just want to say before we get to, some questions, Marylanders have come together and shown that the communities and to the state, as well as our nation, what it means to be Maryland strong. I applaud the Mechanical Contractors Association for dedication in supporting trade workers for nearly a century as they support their families and keep our state running. I can't emphasize enough the integral part of, or the, how integral, I should say, how, and the hard work and dedication that you have put in to make Maryland's economy successful and continue to move. And with that, I'd say, thank you again for inviting me to join you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you for that presentation, Lieutenant Governor. I really appreciate this. We're very grateful for the balanced approach that the Hogan-Rutherford administration pursued during the pandemic, which enabled not only our contractors to continue working, but equally, or maybe more importantly, working families to continue working. When we look across the country, we see areas where they took more draconian measures, places like Boston and Michigan and these places, and a lot of people were really hurt in those areas of the country. So thankfully, you really had a level-headed, balanced, bipartisan approach, and we're eternally grateful for that. So thank you.
Thank you.
So looking forward, what do you see the Hogan-Rutherford administration's priorities over the next 2 years? Are there any 1 or 2 key policy measures that you're pursuing? You mentioned the unemployment rate, and that continues to fall. Is there any specific 1 or 2 issues that the administration is going to focus on?
Well, I think chief will be something that we have been, working towards when we started, and what, I say led, then citizen Larry Hogan to decide he was going to run for governor. And that's to improve the business climate and make sure that we don't go back in terms of, making it more difficult to create jobs and for people to work. So I think, one of the things that we will definitely continue to, push for is, having reasonable taxes, tax relief, if at all possible, keeping our regulations reasonable, while protecting our health, safety, and environment, to not overburden industry so that we slow down or shut down our economy. And so I think it'll be, really making sure that the, legislature does not push too far with their, well-meaning positions, but don't really consider the adverse impact on workers and businesses and production. So I think that's going to be a driving force. We have a redistricting. This is, the time when you redraw legislative lines, both on the congressional side and in the state legislature. That's going to be key. We have some of the most, if not the most, gerrymandered districts in the country. I personally feel that helps to lead to a lot of the acrimony that you see on Capitol Hill, because the districts are drawn in such a ways that you have, in a sense, you've protected incumbents where you have, strong, one party dominated areas. So the fight is only in the primary. You don't have to appeal to a wider group of people and a wider perspective of folks. And so, I think I know we're going to be still pushing for, maps that are drawn that represent the communities better and not just the interests of the elected officials. Crime in Baltimore is a big issue. and for many of the last several years, we've been pushing for legislation that would have stiffer sentences for individuals who commit crimes and utilize guns. And so I expect that we'll have legislation in that area as well. But, mainly if there's one, it definitely would be, making sure that our economy keeps going and that the legislature does not throw in any unnecessary barriers or burdens to job creation.
Excellent, thank you. We have a question from one of the participants asking about infrastructure. Infrastructure is the, I guess, the term du jour now. And so, yeah. So what are your thoughts? Are you hearing anything that you might be able to share with our community? Roads, bridges?
Well, I know that the governor in particular is engaged with some members of Congress on both sides of the aisle with regard to, trying to come up with a true infrastructure plan, something that everyone can agree upon. It seems that one day it seems that the parties are closer and then they're not so close. I am hopeful that, they'll get it to the point where I think everyone's in agreement that there's a need for improving our infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, our broadband access. It's just how much of the other stuff that needs to be done. And then, and I know there's a lot of concern of how you pay for it, particularly with all the stimulus that's been put in place, much of it needed over the last year. It's still a question we always have to pay for whatever we do. So I am hopeful that we'll see something come out of Washington with regard to a infrastructure plan. There's work that could be done both here. We have plans with regard to expansion of the Capital Beltway. The Legion Bridge. We have, we could use some assistance in some of our rail services and mass transit services, of course, broadband. So, we're hopeful here that something will be worked out. I'm optimistic that something will be. It's just, the sausage making just gets to be a little ugly.
Understood. Looking back on the last, and just a couple more questions maybe. Looking back on the last 6 years, what's your proudest achievement as an administration? Is there one singular achievement that you really look back finally and say, we did it right?
Yeah, I would have to say just the handling of the pandemic. I mean, now it's not over, but I think, getting through the worst aspects of the pandemic, I think the approach we took was, balanced. Now, are there things we probably could have done better? I mean, yeah, so we probably could have done a few things better. We tried to gradually, restrain the economy. There could be arguments that, well, we do get arguments that we went too far, and there's some that said we didn't go far enough, which maybe that meant we were in the right place. But we tried to, best of the information, use the best information that we had available, make the best decisions for people. And I think when you look at it in terms of how we fared compared to some other states, I think we had we did as well as we could, and I think we should be all proud. And really, the Maryland public took it very seriously, and that had a lot to do with it. With the governor and our administration taking it seriously from the beginning, and then the public taking it seriously has been all beneficial. The challenge we have now is that we do still have a number of individuals who have not gotten the vaccine. We do believe, I truly believe, that the vaccines work. I think the evidence is there that they are working. And there's still, there's hesitancy and there's outright refusal. I think it's more hesitancy out there than it is the refusal aspect. The refusal, we're not going to worry about that, but we need to get those who are a little hesitant to get in there. So from an administration standpoint, I think that is definitely the one. On a personal note, there's a redevelopment of a old shopping center, Northwood Shopping Center up by Morgan State. And that was, and it's private property, but the university was very, interested in seeing it redeveloped. The ownership wanted to redevelop it. The community would like to have seen it redeveloped, but they didn't want students there. I don't know if anyone, when you deal with a university and communities, there's always this love-hate between the university and the community that it sits in, because it's like, well, we love the university, we just don't like the students. That's usually what it is. I know when I was in sales, we would jokingly say, sales would be great if we didn't have these customers, but bringing those parties together when it looked like it was going to all fall apart. Early on in our administration, I brought them all into my office so they could fuss and resolve. And the local state senator was kind of representing the community, and so she was willing to shut everything down, and so it was just trying to get them resolved, and development is taking place now. So sometimes it just helps to bring people together, put them in the same room so that they could work through what their issues were. And then the state helped the university in terms of making sure that the project helped so that the university could invest in it as well. So that, for me personally, is something that I'm very proud of, an accomplishment there.
That's terrific. It looks like we have one other question from the queue. It's a compliment. The administration has done such a good job. A couple of our people are asking, regretting that perhaps you didn't run for governor. So let me ask it in a more politically correct way. What's the future for the lieutenant governor? You've been.
I'm sorry, I kind of giggled during your question. So what was it that you just said?
Yeah. So the question is, what's your future? What's it for public service?
I expect that I will be involved, in probably a number of areas that I was interested in and have been interested in, as an advocate, possibly serve on a nonprofit board or something of that nature, which typically doesn't pay. But I'll still try to be making a living doing something. But I expect on the public side, I'll still be advocating for some of the things that I have followed that are important to me, as well as being a cranky constituent. So I'll fuss at the new people on what they're doing, what they should do, what they're not doing, and some of the things that I had hoped that we would have been able to do and haven't been able to get done.
That's terrific. It looks like that was the last question. Any final thoughts for us? We really appreciate your time, Lieutenant Governor. We know you're incredibly busy. Any thoughts for the MCA team?
No, nothing else, but other than to say thank you for all your efforts and bearing with us through this difficult year and, I don't know, 3-4 months, whatever it's been. But continuing to work. Like we've said earlier, we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel. We still have some things to do to get through the pandemic. Like I said, get the vaccines, continue to get that last grouping of individuals that are resistant to, or hesitant, I should say, in getting vaccines. But, we're continuing to work to make sure our economy stays open for business, and continue to, provide opportunities for your membership to continue to work and take care of their families. And so thank you for this opportunity to talk.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.